Welcome to another edition of the Broad Podcaster with me, Jennifer Fierro, right here in the Highland Lakes, joined once more with Art Dlugach, the voice of the Llano Yellow Jackets. We are going to do two segments today. One, because it's Big 12 Media Days. It's the second day of Big 12 Media Days, which conclude in Arlington on Thursday. Art and I had a chance to listen to three Texas-based head coaches and some of their players talk about their off-season, their preseason, and the upcoming season, and we want to get into that. Of course, we're going to spend this segment right now on Texas Tech and TCU. Coach Joey McGuire of the Red Raiders and Sonny Dykes of the Horned Frogs. And then in the last segment, we'll talk about the University of Texas, Steve Sarkisian, and looks like a timeline from the Big 12 for these changes to be made. So let's go ahead and get right into it, Art. You and I have already met Joey McGuire. We have met and talked to Sonny Dykes. I consider Sonny a friend. We have spent quite a bit of time with him over the years because of his dad being a Horseshoe Bay resident. Did you see anything to change your opinion about Joey going into what he said today?
I don't think if you saw Joey McGuire 300 times, there'd be any difference in him. He is just a man alive, fiery, and not in a cliche way at all. We saw him at the Horseshoe Bay Sports Club a month or so ago, and you just recognized the desire and passion, dedication in him then, and again today, being interviewed on ESPN. So I think the Texas Tech folks have really got a good one, and other coaches have said that too, including Bob Stoops, the former head coach at Oklahoma. And it could be, should be a fine year for the Red Raiders if the team is a mirror of their head coach. And of course, that's a stretch sometimes. You know, you can't make these guys superstars. But boy, he's a great beginning, I'll tell you.
Yeah. Well, he did talk today about the $200 million football facility. It sounds like I thought they were going to improve. I do think they'll improve what they have. They showed renderings of what the new football stadium will look like. And McGuire thinks that when it's all said and done, that facility will be the crown jewel of the Big 12. I think that he believes it will put the Red Raiders at the front of the line when it comes to facilities. And that says to me the belief that the Texas Tech alumni, their boosters, and their fans have in McGuire to get that program going again. You talked about high energy.
Yes, I want to just add to what you said that he mentioned that the $200 million that they're going to $200 million they're going to spend shows how serious Tech is about athletics. It's only been, I don't know, 10 or 15 years because I was there that they built a $10 million track right next to the baseball field, and it's a beauty. Of course, that's nothing like what $200 million is going to look like, and I'm sure eager to see it, and I know that when you talk about recruiting, that's got to be a big deal.
We'll get into that too, because he outlined how he handles recruiting. He talked about 7 coaches that have divided the Panhandle into 7 parts, and they recruit the Panhandle, in his words, like it was its own state. That's how serious he is, and that falls in line with what my high school coaches told me regarding McGuire in his commitment to not let the kids from the Panhandle leave the Panhandle. He made a commitment to not being out-recruited in the Panhandle anymore.
And West Texas, which is really part of that.
Sure. So I think that you're starting to see the fruits of that. The other thing that concerned me, he had talked about a player that he wanted from Katy High School who was playing for the football team last year, could not make a trip to Lubbock for an official or unofficial visit. The thing that McGuire said that concerned me as a Texas fan is that the Katy head coach told Joey, I will make sure that this player and his family know the kind of man you are and the program you run. And I believe that that player ended up at Lubbock and was going to enroll in January 2022. That was the other thing. So that says plenty, and that confirms yet again what I had been hearing from other high school coaches. McGuire is not going to get out recruited. He is going to commit to recruiting the Panhandle and or West Texas, won't get out recruited there, and coaches really like him. There's not been one negative thing I've heard about Joey McGuire, and I think he showed that again today.
McGuire, who was on the Baylor staff the last 4 or 5 years, I believe, and of course Baylor won the Super Bowl, won the Big 12 championship and the Sugar Bowl this past January 1st. I think when you meet McGuire and if he meets the folks of these recruits, they're going to be impressed, and that's important too.
Sure. Let's now switch gears and talk about Sonny Dykes and TCU. And as we've said before, Sonny Dykes is a friend, a personal friend. I consider him to be a friend. Loved his father very much, and Spike Dykes. He and Emory Ballard did so much for children without insurance here in the Highland Lakes for many, many years. Sonny has gone, I remember when he was the head coach at Cal, and how he broke my heart as a Texas fan a couple of times.
Saw both games, the one here and the one in Berkeley.
Yeah, and then turns around and takes over at SMU, does a phenomenal job there, and that has led to his appointment and accepting the job at TCU. What were your impressions of Sonny today?
Oh, I've liked him and his career, and of course enjoyed his words on the Big 12 interviews. He started, or at least his main big job first as a head coach was Louisiana Tech, and did very well there, and that led to where he got the job at Cal. Cal didn't go so well, but came to SMU and really turned that program around. So I think TCU has a good one. He certainly knows the state as far as recruiting is concerned, as we were talking about with Coach McGuire. So he's a little bit lower key than McGuire, but then everybody is except Jennifer. So they'll have to understand that, but he'll do fine. And TCU, my goodness, as good as they were with Gary Patterson, I think they'll continue that. And an interesting team to watch right there in the 4, 5, or 6 slot of favorites for the Big 12.
Well, the thing that he did say today, for those of you who love the air raid, he talked about Mike Leach, and that's how he got his start, being on Mike Leach's staff at Texas Tech in the early 2000s. If there is many things about Sonny that he does well. Among the very top is quarterback. He had Jared Goff. I think Jared Goff was his quarterback
at
Cal. And, of course, I thought Jared Goff, when he went #1 overall, was the most accurate quarterback I saw that season in his draft class when they played Texas. So there's a little bit of a quarterback battle happening. I call it a little bit because I just don't see how you bench Max Duggan. I just don't see how that happens. But we'll see. And there were plenty of quarterback battles talked about throughout Big 12 media days. That just happens to be one of them. But for those of you who like the air raid, who like to air it out, it sounds like Coach Dykes is going to be installing his version of the air raid at TCU, and that will make it a lot of fun.
Oh, I think that's going to be a good team. Interesting that Coach Patterson, who was there for a couple of decades and great success, and boy, as a Baylor grad, although my friend in St. Louis Lowell says, you mentioned Baylor too much. I apologize, but Patterson and TCU, they could really take it to Baylor. So Patterson now, that I only found out recently, should have known earlier, now at Texas as really, I think you would call him an analyst.
Yes.
Defensive analyst.
Yes. Yeah, or I think that Sarkisian called him a special a special assistant to the head coach or something like that.
Sounds
officially.
Good.
But we can get into that a little more. I did find it interesting, like I said, because Sonny talked about how it's a 15-minute drive for him, how he's 2 blocks away. I can't remember, 15 minutes from the hotel or 15?
No, 2 blocks from his house to TCU campus.
There we go. And, man, you talk about that, in most days, that would be a nice brisk walk for me. So, a great job there for Sonny in saying yes. What a great time it was to hear him and some of his players speak to the media today. Just can't say enough about both of those guys, and just now being on the fringes of being among the very elite in the league.
Compare the traffic that Coach Dykes, Coach McGuire, Coach Sarkisian, we're going to talk about momentarily, and several others. Compare the traffic they face with what Lincoln Riley is going to face in the beautiful city of Los Angeles.
Well,
and I mean beautiful, but boy, you want an area with traffic probably none worse or better than L.A.
Well, I am sure we can get into the beautiful mansions, and I've seen the pictures of where Riley is staying, but that recruiting base within a 50-mile radius, that is something. Okay, that's all I have for segment 1 with TCU and with Texas Tech. Of course, Art and I did the first day of Big 12 Media Days yesterday, and you can find those in the archives on the channel here. Next up, the University of Texas, and what we are hearing about the new look Big 12 and how and when things are starting to shape up in terms of when Texas and Oklahoma may be leaving. Stay with us. We're going to close this segment out. And before I forget, if you want your Highland Lake sports news, make sure you go to TexasChalkTalk.com and please like, subscribe, and share the channel.